It's a Money Monday edition of Liquid Lunch on Newsmax TV. Yeah, we're here. We're live. And we're talking about the great Martin Luther King Jr. as we celebrate his legacy on this federal holiday. And this is my favorite segment of the show. We call it the Mix It Up. We're the only show on television that every single day brings on a Democrat and a Republican. I throw out the topics. They mix it up. One rule is we have thoughtful conversation. At the end, no matter what happens, we shake hands and we part friends. Joe Pinion is going to be joining us momentarily, but one of the best Democrats I know, local leader in the Democratic Party, and also candidate for New York City Council, Josh Kravitz joins us today. Hey, Josh.
Hey,
thanks a lot.
thank you for having
We're
me.
not going to mix it up just yet until Joe gets here.
Okay.
But I do want to get your opinion because it's strange. The New York Times, typically, for their history, the Gray Lady usually endorses like one candidate. For some reason, they came out and felt the need to endorse two candidates, Elizabeth Warren and Amy Klobuchar. What the heck is going on?
So first off, I have a lot of institutional loyalty to the New York Times. My parents put the New York Times in my hands when I was a baby and said, if you want to be smart, this is what you read. So I love.
Is that what happened to you? Is that how this happened?
I honestly have more. I have more loyalty to the New York Times probably than I do to my own college. I really love it as an institution. I'm hard pressed to criticize it, but I watched the show last night and I tend to agree with you. I don't really understand why they nominated two. Now, here's what I think their logic is, and here's something that I do understand. If you think, as I do, that Trumpism is to America a cancer, there are possibly two cures. One is, it's rhetorical. It's the people fighting at Little League games because he's a mean guy, right? Can we fix that by being nice to each other, by uniting? But Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren have a different argument. Theirs is the reason why people like Trump in the first place and were attracted to them was because of economic insecurity. It's about class. It's about people who are struggling. And Trump understood that. And if you really want to beat Trump, you have to beat him at the class level. So those are two lines of strains of thought in the Democratic Party's thinking. And so what they said is, we don't know which one is right, so we'll endorse one from either strain. I don't buy that. I think at the end of the day, the Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren strain is correct. I think that at the end of the day, Trump won because he was able to understand class. He was able to understand people's economic struggles, and Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren are speaking to that. That's their theory of the case.
Well, but isn't it almost disrespectful to the women that they couldn't pick one? It's almost like, hey, if we're gonna go with a woman, we're gonna go with two.
Yeah,
it's kind of disrespectful to women, if you ask me.
I mean, you can make that argument. I don't think they.
I'm making that argument.
I don't think they. I don't think they meant any disrespect. But at the end of the day, if you're splitting the baby, it didn't do its service to the New York Times. And again, I'm someone who. I'm a New York Times apologist. I don't like to criticize the New York. People criticize the New York Times on the left all the time because the New York Times does this thing constantly where they go to some Pennsylvania diner and ask people what they think, the same Trump voters over and over again, and the same Trump voters like Trump. And they just do these profiles on the same people, and it's like, so what? So people criticize on the left and the right the New York Times. I don't like to get into that business, but I understand what you're saying.
So I want to ask you about this impeachment stuff. Tomorrow is a historic day. It's only the third time in history they're gonna try to impeach a president. Alan Dershowitz, who we've had on the show many times, was added to Trump's legal team.
Right.
Take a look at what Alan Dershowitz said, and I want to get your thoughts on it.
The president's attorneys last night asserted several times that the president did nothing wrong with Ukraine. Do you agree with that?
I didn't sign that brief. I didn't even see the brief until after it was filed. That's not part of my mandate. My mandate is to determine what is a constitutionally authorized criteria for impeachment. And I strongly believe that abuse of power is so open-ended. Half of American presidents in history, from Adams to Jefferson to Lincoln to Roosevelt, have been accused by the political enemies of abusing their power.
So Dershowitz joins the Dream Team, and we're going to have Kimberly Guilfoyle here in just a bit. We're going to get her views on it, but Joe Pinion joins us. Joe, thanks for joining us. You and Josh, I'm sure, have differing opinions on this. We just heard from Alan Dershowitz saying that this has been happening for years. It's not a good article. The abuse of power is not a good argument. What do you think about it?
Look, I've been saying from the beginning, every first-year law student knows it's not what you know, it's what you can prove. And Democrats keep going to the American people and saying, believe me. They said that they had, unimpeachable evidence when it came to collusion. That, believe me, well, it wasn't there. They said they had all this evidence saying that we have all these Ukrainian misdeeds from President Trump. They lined up a whole line of witnesses, all that came forth, and none of them were able to say conclusively that the President of the United States directed them to withhold withhold aid in exchange for dirt. So I think, again, when we talk about was there a quid pro quo, I think it's been acknowledged by the administration there was, but as I said many times, every quid pro quo is not all quid pro quo is bribery, but all bribery is quid pro quo, and Democrats have yet to be able to prove that something that was impeachable has actually occurred.
Josh, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know where to begin because it's a lot. But I am a lawyer, and I do understand evidence, and I do understand making a case. What I will tell you is that read the transcript, and also in regard to Alan Dershowitz's comment, read the Federalist Papers, Alan Dershowitz, because at the end of the day, what Alexander Hamilton wrote is that a violation of public trust is an impeachable offense. Now, let me just say something, because one of the defenses that just came out in President Trump's legal briefs in the last couple of hours was, oh, this is overturning the election. Let me just explain something. Donald Trump was constitutionally elected. He wasn't democratically elected. Hillary Clinton got 3 million more votes. If we had a democratic elections, Hillary Clinton would be president. He was constitutional. I'm not complaining. I'm not complaining.
Sounds like it.
No, but I'm not complaining. Well, look, Democrats have won 6 out of the 7 last presidential elections, according to the popular vote. But at the end of the day, what have we gotten? 2 terms of Bush and a term of Trump. We now have John Roberts on the court, Gorsuch, Alito,
Thank God.
and Kavanaugh,
In my view.
all because of elections that Trump.
But that's how we've been doing it, right? For years, that's how we've been doing it.
If I just may finish my point. My point is that the Constitution provided the guidelines so that Donald Trump would be elected. He did not win the popular vote, but he won the election because it's a constitutional election. The Constitution also has mechanisms for removing a president. One of those is the violation of public trust. It's right there in the Federalist Papers. He used the government's awesome power, the awesome power of the United States government, to extort a foreign government for his own personal benefit. If you can't see that, it's right in front of your eyes. Read the transcript.
Well,
I
again,
you see it, Joe?
I think it's a matter of opinion. And I think when you're talking about the court of public opinion, the court of public opinion remains pretty much unswayed when it comes to, should we have gone through this process? Does Congress have the right, under their purview, to go through and investigate and call witnesses? 100%. And I think the Republicans that say so are out of their mind. But to the point is, have they made the case? Have they met the burden? Absolutely.
Does the Senate, should the Senate have a real trial? And a trial I'm defining by a situation in which witnesses are called, evidence is brought forward, documents are brought forward, or should we have what it is now, a sham, where they're going to push it through in the middle of the night?
Explain how this is a sham.
Because we're not having any witnesses.
Well, it's the job of the Congress, of the House, to go forth and call
John
for
Bolton was given a subpoena.
And then Democrats withdrew the subpoena.
But the president exerted executive privilege, and that assertion would have meant that it would have had to be in the court for months.
Correct, because there is a process.
Don McGahn's subpoena has not been withdrawn. It's still in the courts for months.
For the level of impeachment, the notion that somehow that things could not have been expedited in the courts is ludicrous.
But Don McGahn is similarly situated.
If I may finish, the fact remains that, again, when you have 2 branches of government that disagree, be it the executive branch, and obviously you have you talk about the Congress, you have to go to the 3rd branch. That's talking about the courts. Democrats refuse to actually utilize the courts because I think, in my humble opinion, they recognize an extended, protracted process would not have been good for America, and also would not have been good for their prospects as it came to getting the outcome they would have liked. And so I think because of that, as I've said many times, they want to have their impeachment cake and eat it too. They want to say that we could have gone to the courts and won, but at the same time not go to the courts knowing full well they probably would not have worked out in their favor.
Look, a presidency is a 4-year term. If you're going to spend a year in the courts trying to get just a subpoena to come through so we can get evidence, you can never impeach a president, even if a president says something wrong. All the president has to do is say, none of my people can testify.
Quite honestly, Democrats have been in this impeachment thing since the day Trump took office. So you could make the argument they've had ample time to go to the courts and get the out.
Nadler was saying in 2016
we had Congressman Green literally before Trump even placed his hand on the Bible saying they were going to impeach him.
And I would just say this, when you're quoting the Federalist Papers and all this stuff, as far back as you can go, executive privilege has had a very, very broad range, and many, Jefferson, Washington, have exerted executive privilege to even their lower level staffers because they had to have a way to communicate amongst each other.
And I would just like to add in that every single president of my lifetime has been accused of abuse of power, right? And so again, I think that we're always going to have disagreements as to what extent, at what point does this rise to the level of impeachment. And again, I will say that Democrats, again, do have the right. There is ample smoke to suggest that, again, an investigation had to occur.
I appreciate your
But at the end of the day,
I appreciate your even-handedness, and I really do, and I really think that you're right. It's not overturning an election, but removing a president from office is an awesome power that Congress has, and it should not be done lightly. I completely agree. Anyone can throw out the accusation of abuse of power, and anyone can then just start impeachment processes. But this is of a different scale than anything else. It is not, oh, well, you know, Benghazi. Oh, the president didn't get the call that there was an attack going on at the Libyan.
According to whom, though? I mean, and this becomes the issue, right? That if you have a situation where
according to the
evidence says that the president of the
United
United States has already admitted that yes, aid was withheld in exchange.
And the GAO said that was illegal, so that's actually illegal.
That the aid was withheld. Well, I think again that is debatable, but the president has.
Well, the GAO said that the law was broken. Well, it's not debatable that was happening.
Well, look, the GAO has their legal opinion. There are a whole
independent, nonpartisan branch.
You can find a line of attorneys that will span all of 6th Avenue who will come up with different opinions on whether it was illegal or whether it was not illegal. I think, again, we've arrived at the point right now where, politically speaking, both sides have made up their minds. So, again, to me, the notion that this is not a fair trial simply because Republicans have made up their mind ignores the fact that Democrats from Kamala Harris to Cory Booker have all stood on debate stages in front of America saying, this dude got to go.
On the facts of the trial itself, it's a trial.
But it is
and
not.
And the jury foreman is working with the subject of the trial to make the rules and to withhold evidence and to withhold testimony of people who were in the room. How can you fairly call that a trial? Like,
didn't they do that in the House?
But the House was
Josh,
but what I'm saying, the House had the opportunity to call all the witnesses that supposedly could and would be called in the Senate. The House had the power and the purview to call, and they didn't. What they did do now is say that, oh, guess what? We want to call these witnesses because they didn't actually want to drag them in front of the people. They just want to say they could.
So let me ask you. If you're in a grand jury proceeding and you're bringing witnesses to a grand jury, you can't bring witnesses who didn't appear at a grand jury to testify to a real trial?
I personally believe that the grand jury argument is where Democrats go off the rails because it's long held that you can actually probably get a grand jury indictment for a ham sandwich.
No, but
we talk about the fact that the rights
impeachment as a structural matter is parallel to a criminal trial. It's not a criminal trial; it's a political proceeding, but it's parallel. Right. The House acts as a grand jury and the Senate acts as a jury. So, in a grand jury, if you don't bring a certain piece of evidence in a grand jury, that doesn't preclude you from bringing it at trial. In fact, you should, because more evidence might come to light in the interim time between the grand jury and the jury.
Look, I think, again...
Right? Is that true, what I'm saying?
What you're saying is accurate. I disagree with certain actual correlations, but I think, look, at the end of the day, if you're talking about what is happening here is that Democrats do not want to avail themselves of the court because they don't want this thing to be dragged out any further, because they're already going to have to drag off, at least no less than 3 of their front runners for presidents off the trail on the eve of the Iowa caucus. To sit here and pretend that is not part of the actual, structure here, I think it would be disingenuous on both our parts.
Guys,
so politics are at play, and we just have to make sure that, again, we're being honest.
I got to give Joe the last word this time. Josh, you're a great sport. Thank you so much. I got to bring down the gavel on this session and mix it up. Kimberly Guilfoyle joins us right after this. We got a whopper of a Money Monday show coming at you. Stay right there. We'll be back after this.